The world's biggest brands don't sell products. They sell psychology. Welcome to Decoding International Brands, Part 4.
This photograph captures the fractured public square of 2017. Physical protests frequently boiled over into tense, aggressive confrontations. Corporate boardrooms watched this polarization and, for the most part, decided to keep quiet. The risk of alienating half their customer base kept most major brands strictly on the sidelines. Those who did try to speak up often failed. This image of Kendall Jenner became the face of a disastrous attempt by Pepsi to insert itself into the cultural conversation, a widely mocked campaign that trivialized the very real friction happening in the streets. The backlash clarified a harsh reality for marketers. Audiences wanted companies to care about real issues, but they had a ruthless radar for sanitized, performative gestures. Facing this climate, Heineken and their agency, Publicis London, decided to take a completely different route. Rather than writing a slick script about unity, they designed a social experiment. They wanted to observe actual human behavior in real time. They set out to answer a specific question. Could forced physical cooperation bridge a gap between people who hold entirely opposite worldviews? By treating the commercial as an unscripted test rather than a piece of corporate messaging, Heineken sidestepped the trap of sounding like they were lecturing the audience. The setup required total strangers. The casting team deliberately paired individuals whose personal politics and identities were in direct conflict. Looking at a protest sign like this, the anxiety over the climate crisis is clear. Heineken took an environmental activist carrying this exact kind of message and placed them in a room with a staunch climate change skeptic. They also matched a passionate feminist with an anti-feminist. Similarly, this image captures the fierce debates over gender identity. For another pair, a transgender woman was matched with a man who firmly argued that gender is, without question, strictly binary. The critical mechanism here was silence. When the participants met, they knew absolutely nothing about their partner's deeply held beliefs. Instead of talking, they were handed simple instructions and tools. Together, they had to assemble stools and a bar counter. This physical labor established a cooperative baseline. When two people lift heavy wood and decipher confusing instructions together, they build intense rapport based on immediate shared effort. By the time the furniture was built, the strangers were laughing and joking. The experiment had successfully forged a human connection, laying groundwork for the stress test that followed. With the bar completed, the participants sat down next to each other to rest. Then, the producers triggered the reveal. A screen in front of them played pre-recorded interviews, explicitly exposing each person's true opposing ideology to their new partner. The mood in the room drops. The comfortable illusion of camaraderie shatters as the participants process exactly who they've been working with. A voice over a loudspeaker presents a clear choice. They can leave the warehouse immediately, no questions asked, or they can stay and discuss their differences. This is where the product enters the frame. Cold Heineken bottles, like the one seen here, are offered on the bar they just built to facilitate the next step. The cameras simply roll, capturing the heavy silence of an unscripted decision with real emotional stakes. One by one, the participants choose to stay. They crack open the beers, clink their bottles, and actually start talking. Because they had already bonded over the physical task, their conversations were driven by curiosity. They asked difficult questions, but they listened to the answers. The raw humanity of these interactions stood in stark contrast to the hollow corporate messaging represented by brands like Pepsi. The resulting ad, titled Worlds Apart, exploded online. It generated millions of views, widespread media praise, and collected top-tier industry awards like the one shown here. It proved that consumers will enthusiastically embrace a brand's social message, provided that message is delivered through authentic, unstaged interaction. This diagram illustrates the first lesson of the campaign. Show, don't preach. An active horizontal behavioral experiment persuades an audience far more effectively than a traditional top-down scripted monologue. Second, as the highlighted node shows, let the product play a supporting role. Heineken never claimed their beer could solve global polarization. They positioned it simply as an excuse to linger at a table and keep a difficult conversation going. True brand courage rarely involves having all the answers. Often it comes down to the willingness to build a space, step out of the way, and let human connection do the rest.